Alright, welcome back class. Today we're going to work on our next part of the project, which is connecting our cubes to make the individual puzzle pieces. So let me take a step back here on the video. So if I start from the original Onshape menu, I'm going to open up the file that we started in the previous video, which is the 3D cube file. You'll see I've got my 8 tabs across the bottom. I've got one assembly tab, but each of my parts are renamed to the right color, the right cube. So I'm going to start by moving over to the assembly tab. You'll notice the buttons up top are a little bit different because now this is kind of our Legos. We're putting them together. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert the parts that I want. So I do that by clicking on Insert here. One thing to call out here, I can insert items from my current document or other documents. There's also some standard content, but we're not working with any of that, but that's like nuts and bolts and things like that. More importantly for this project, we have Part Studios and Assembly. So everything we've done up to this point was a Part Studios tab. So those are our cubes. Later on, after we do this assembly here and we get our 8 puzzle pieces made, we're going to be then creating our final puzzle by assembling the 8 different parts together, and that's doing the assembly tab. But since I've got no assemblies, nothing's available. So I'm going to start with my white puzzle cube. You'll notice because I'm kind of zoomed in a little bit, it was kind of hard to see, so I just control and spun the mouse wheel to zoom out a little bit. Since our puzzle pieces that we make are 8 cubes for each color, I'm going to insert 8 cubes. I do this by clicking on the part that I'm adding. There's a couple of things to notice here. So right now, if I wasn't mentally counting and knew that I had 4 cubes already inserted, right here it tells me inserted 4. It also tells me 4 instances, or I can count the white cubes. It also adds them wherever my mouse was most recently clicked. So now if I go over here and add a couple more, it'll kind of move them. They're not really lined up anymore. Now I'm up to 7. I need 1 more to get to my 8th cube. Now that I've got all 8 cubes inserted, I'm good with this window. I'm going to hit the green check. Now they're all kind of on top of each other, which I don't like too much, makes it hard. So I'm going to zoom out, which I just did a little bit with the mouse. I'm now going to left click on each cube and kind of space them out. This way I can kind of see all the different parts, at least from the 3D view. I've got the top, the front, and the side, or the right side. So as of right now, you'll notice all of my assemblies over here are all black. That means everything is good. If you ever look over here and you see something that's red, that means you messed up on that part and you need to troubleshoot it. So our next step, we've inserted our parts. Our next step is to do what's called Fasten Mate. That's how it's the simplest combination of parts, in my opinion, in Onshape. That's this button right here. I like to say it looks like a Coke can or a soda can that's been cut in half and has a little notch out of it. It's also, as you notice, the only one without the arrows out of the fasten buttons. So I'm going to click that. The window pops up. It tells me fasten 1, but it's red. That means I just started it. I haven't done anything. I need to fix it, or I need to do some work. My blue wind box says I need to pick mate connectors. What that means is, where am I going to combine them? To mate something means to connect or to mesh, and where are my connecting points? So if I zoom in on one of these cubes, and I hover over one of the faces, you'll see a few different things. In the middle, there's this circle. There's also the 8 dots around the edge, up here in the corner, there, and there's one, so all the way around, and the one in the middle. The way to think of this is wherever I click, that's where it's going to connect this cube, and then after that I'm going to click on the next cube, and that's exactly where I'm going to put a drop of glue and combine these cubes. So if I decide to connect in the corners, what I end up with is something that the corners barely touch in a 3D world, which for us, since we're making a 2D puzzle, is not what we want. If I've messed up and done this, I can either just completely cancel out, or I can remove them right here by clicking on the X next to the name in the blue window. So for this project, we want to connect the center of one face to the center of another cube. So now I've done it, but you'll notice the cube disappeared. So what I want to do to make the second cube reappear is what's called flip the primary axis, which is just this 2 arrow button. I hit that 2 arrow button, my block pops back out, I'm now looking good. I will hit the green check mark, and you'll notice it says commit this current mate and start a new mate. My fasten 1 is now black here. I've now got a new fasten 2 here, which is red, as well as up here. So now it's asking me, okay, what's the next cube that I want to connect to this assembly? So in this case, I can do one of two things. I can either click the big puzzle piece that I'm making, or I can click on the cube. It's simpler, in my opinion, to click on the next cube we're adding, and then to click on the puzzle piece that we're adding it to. You'll notice that cube went from here, went over here, but again it disappeared. So we flip it, pop it out, we green check mark it. Our fasten 2 turned black, fasten 3 appeared, and it's red, so we know we're now into the next one. Now if instead I clicked on the giant puzzle piece and then I clicked on my next cube, you'll notice it moved one of the cubes from my assembly over. You're okay at this point. Everything is still black, so we haven't messed up yet. But you'll notice the cube has disappeared. So we hit the arrow to make it appear, hit the green check button, and it moves it all back because it already knew from the fasten 1 and the fasten 2 that these 3 cubes had to be together. So it then knew that, hey, we're combining this 4th cube to this one, and so it does all 3 fastens at the same time. One thing you'll often see, that I often see students do, is they will click one, and then instead of clicking in the right place, they might click inside of one of the previous cubes. I can't even manage to do it. And they'll do something like that. So that means when I did the second combine, or the second mate here, I didn't do the middle of the circle. So I just need to double click on that mate that I just did to bring it back to active. Undo one or both of the areas where I said to connect, and do it again. In this case, I'm making a shape that's not necessarily a straight line, so I'm going to connect this piece to here. It's that cube that I just added is hidden, so I'm going to pop it out to bring it up top, which is where I want it to be. So now that I can see it, everything is black, I'm going to hit the green check mark. Now since the window I had was the original one up here and not that little small window, my Fasten Mate has disappeared. I got to go back in to start the next one. So Fasten Mate. I'm going to add a cube here to the top. So it actually took it upon itself to spin my puzzle pieces a little bit. But it's still working, it's still going where I want it. Now I'm on to Fasten 6. I want this one to go up here. I'm good. And my last puzzle piece goes right here. So now I've got the white shape that I want. When we were doing our plastic cubes, this was the puzzle piece that we created. So now you'll notice I've got 7 fastens. That's all I need for connecting 8 cubes. But I've got this red 8. All I need to do to get out of here is hit the red X, and I'm good. So all of my white cubes are in black. All of my fastens are in black. I've got no reds. I'm good with this part. I'm now going to right click and rename this my white puzzle piece. So I'm now done with the white. Now I'm on to making my next assembly. So I hit the plus sign, left click. I go to create assembly and I get a new tab. In this case, my next one I'm going to make is my black puzzle piece. Just like before, I'm going to insert the pieces, and I'm going to insert 8 black cubes. Once I get to 8 inserted, I'm going to hit the green check mark to let it know that I added them all. I'm going to space them out some so I can see all my puzzle pieces, or all my cubes individually. And now I'm going to start working on building my next puzzle piece. In this case, my black puzzle piece is more of an L shape, so it's a 4x4 cube, or 4x4 L. So I'm just going to do my Fasten Mate button, click, click, once I see my puzzle piece look added to where I want it and it looks right, I just green check and I keep moving. So now I've got my bottom. Now I'm going to start making that upper leg of the L. So there, it moved in a way I didn't want it, so I just canceled it out. So I'm going to go back to the Fasten Mate. It's being a little slow and unresponsive today, so I'm having to double click things a couple times to make it appear. Alright, there we go. I've got my 7 fastens. I'm going to cancel out my red one, so 7 black fastens, 8 black cubes. I'm now good with that one. I'm on to the next assembly tab. Rename light green puzzle piece. Gonna insert my light greens. Hit my green check mark. So this one's more like a a P shape. So I'm just going to go through. I don't necessarily have to move my cubes, so I'm just going to hit my Fasten Mate. And my puzzle piece ends up being 5 cubes tall. Well, that didn't connect where I wanted it to. So Fasten Mate, click on my puzzle piece. There we go. And last but not least is this one. So that's my shape. So red X out. If you've seen my file, I've actually have this rotated the other direction. So just to show you some tricks. When I'm here, if I left click on my assembly, I get this set of white arrows. If I do the arrow, it will move the part in any of the 3 cardinal directions: left, right, up, down. If I do this one, it does basically kind of the same thing, but I can move it in all 3 directions. But more importantly, and I see this when we get to the next step, if I use this line with the circle, I can rotate. And I can flip it. And I can do it that way as well. So all 3D directions. For my case, I want it kind of like that. So that's how you go about making the puzzle pieces. I'm going to sign off here. I'm going to make the rest of my puzzle pieces, and I'll be back in the next video to connect them and make the full, complete, final puzzle.